that anger that you're feeling, you need to take it and you need to make something with it.
Welcome back to It Takes You Universe. Today we have
Alexander Pineiro.
What? You can catch him on City on Fire on Apple Plus TV this Friday, today, May 12th. Insert trailer here.
We get some rules to follow.
There are no secrets in the city of New York. There's cameras everywhere, phone records, parking tickets. Someone saw something, heard something. The city always knows.
Sam got shot in Central Park.
Thank you for being here today, sir. I know him. I don't know why I'm acting like this. So how I'd like to start is, what is this show about and who are you on the show?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's been a long time since I've seen Ashley. But
Just been so famous lately. I'm just here.
oh yeah, before it all blows up.
Right.
So the show is set in 2003 in New York City. It's based around an NYU student who's been shot in Central Park. It's a murder mystery.
Oh.
All the lines are entangled into different characters, so everybody's kind of involved. But it's a lot more in-depth than that. And you'll certainly have to tune in on May 12th to see it all. But it has a lot of themes, including rebellion, grief, trauma. There's really a lot of topics touched upon, and also a lot of art and a lot of music is a huge part of it.
Ooh,
But my character, I play a character named Soul, and I very much don't identify directly with my character because I'll just say a little bit about him. He's kind of a bully. He's kind of a, can I curse?
It's YouTube.
Okay, I mean, he's kind of a dick. But I'm more like easygoing, mellow.
Yeah.
So it's very opposite. But part of what I do identify with Soul is that he is loyal to a fault, but also he is tired of the systemic classism that's happening in New York City at the time.
I was like, currently, always?
Yeah, but also currently, the show
Yeah.
really reflects that. But in the way that I actually do identify with his kind of, I guess, negative side is that I kind of framed his character and his bullying and bad ways around the people in my life that have bullied me.
No!
Cue the tears.
Trauma!
I told you. May 12th.
Today!
Trauma.
How did you get to understanding, like, okay, yeah, I feel good now acting the way he, like, holds himself and talks to people?
I think that in my acting, when you deal with characters who I guess are more kind of broken through like a broken lens, where they seem the way they go about doing things is wrong, you know, in a societal like viewpoint, but there is a grounded human part of them that they see things in that broken lens that you kind of have to see how they see it. Like every evil person thinks they're right. About what they're doing. So that is how I try to look at it. And like I was saying, is the people who bullied me in my life when I was younger, there was something with them where it's like at home they were neglected or they were being like abused by their parents. It wasn't really about me because it could have been you. It could have been some guy on the street right now.
Getting it out.
It could have been anyone. It's not a personal thing. So in my process, I did a lot of self-reflection, a lot of kind of going into my own history and trying to connect what Soul is doing to what the people that were negative towards me were doing as well.
Right.
You know?
See, that's mature. You know what I mean? To be like, why is
That's
someone...
mature.
We're intellectuals. Okay, so then out of like all the crafts or all the things you could do in the world, how did you come to acting? Like, how did you, hey, I'm gonna act. Is it something you always knew you wanted to do, or is it something like somebody suggested it, I was in a play, and then I was like, oh, I kind of dig this.
Yeah. Well, the short answer is acting was kind of the first thing I did well in my life. tried a lot of different things. I've done many different jobs. I've been like a banker. I've been in marketing. I've been a janitor. I've been like in all these different jobs. So how I got into acting was I used to be like an assistant teacher at a nonprofit after-school program working with underprivileged kids, and I would do classes with them in which we would do the basics of screenwriting, the basics of like video, and we had like this cheap camcorder, and they'd be like, "Oh hey," and you're like, "I'm trying to do a scene, be serious," and they just start crying. No, but from there, it kind of evolved into me working with the acting teacher and the dance choreographer to put on theatrical productions with the kids, and we would do like they started doing basic like just dance and look cool, pretty, and then close out the show. But I wanted to do an actual play and write a script and have the kids memorize, and we do this whole theatrical thing, and people were excited about it. The teachers were excited, the kids were excited because they get to actually play and act for real, or not to their extent, that they know. But yeah, we did a couple of those plays, and while I was doing that, I got more interested in the arts, and I started taking film classes at the community college I was at, 13th grade. And from there, I went on to get my BA in film production, and it still wasn't really there.
You're like, I'm around it, but...
Yeah. I was more behind the camera. I didn't think I was like that person at all. But people kept telling me to like, oh, you should be an actor. Oh, you should be, everybody always tells you something like
you should.
You're funny. You should do stand up. Why don't you get on SNL?
No, right now.
Let me call SNL on the phone.
Hey.
Yeah, Spider-Man's casting. Why don't you get him there? It's like sure. But yeah, I still had a couple of jobs. I did marketing. I did finance. I did different things. And one summer, I just said, I'm still young. Have nothing really detrimental responsibly to do.
Yeah, kids.
Yeah, kids, like mortgage or anything like that. So I tried doing acting, and the journey was kind of doing background work for free, working for pizza, just being in the back of like a restaurant and just drinking water for like 12 hours and like clapping. It's like, all right, background, we're gonna clap again. Refill the waters, please, for the background PA. All right, thank you. And that was like
the real come up.
Yeah, for real, man. It was pizza, bagels, and
the carbs.
Empty pockets.
Right. And that was in New York.
That was in New York.
Okay, so you're from New York. I guess we didn't touch that. From New York. So what was I always like to ask, your personal experience with then, okay, you're doing background, you're doing PA. So then how did you transition into like getting an agent, starting to audition? Like, was that still in New York, or did you come here? Like, what was that?
LA.
I know, trying to put your whole like years of...
Yeah.
Because I also wanted to be tangible. Like, I always like to ask each actor that, like, what was your experience with having no experience in this industry, then getting an agent, and then now you're on a series?
I'm actually the first person in my immediate family to go for a career in the performing arts. Like my dad was a cop, my mom was also in finance. They're very like grounded, but they have background as artists. My dad used to play in like a music group, the trumpet, and my mom was a model like years ago. Yeah. Hi, Mom. So I had booked the first year I was acting, I actually booked my first co-star, which is on a show called The Perfect Murder. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard of it.
I was just curious as to how you booked your first co-star. Was that from you self-submitting, or did you already have an agent?
So, yeah, I didn't get an agent until at least until a year in. Okay. I didn't get an agent. My first co-star was self-submitted, and
nice.
I didn't even know what it was at first, because it was just a single girl with an iPhone recording like vertically the auditions. And I had a scene where it was like a very intense scene, because I was going to the guy who raped my girlfriend, and I had a gun. And so that was the audition. Be like, I know what you did. Like I was in the girl's face, like I had a gun, and she was like this. Because I was like so close to her. She had the phone like this. She's like, this is good. And I was like, yeah.
Oh my
gosh. And I didn't get my first agent until I got my next co-star, which was a recurring.
Wow.
It was a show called...
Another self-submission?
Yes.
Wow, see? You're your number one agent. doing that self-submitting? And was that what website were you self-submitting? Actors Access or
that? Oh man, was that
different?
The first Perfect Murder was, I think, backstage.
Okay.
And then the next one, the recurring, is a show called Street Justice: The Bronx, and that was through Actors Access. Nice. And that was actually originally aired on Discovery Channel, and I got my first agent through a girl I met on there named Greta, who would be like kind of like my big sister, because she saw how I acted and how I kind of like handled myself, and we just hit it off. And I was like, I'm a new actor. I don't have an agent. I'm just kind of doing this whole thing. And she couldn't believe it, and she just wanted to hook me up with her agent, who was Albert at Emerging Talent at the time, who's now Emerging Artists, I think. And then that's how I got my first agent.
Oh, awesome. Look at that.
Yeah, it took a long time though.
Network, yeah.
It took a long time. Yeah.
Good job. No, that's amazing. Wow, your first two and then reoccurring. So that's amazing. So really, even if you have agents, I've still know people that have booked great things by self-submitting. So never stop, kids.
Yeah, definitely don't rest on the laurels of agents. Because as much as they probably do like you, I mean, they're just submitting. You know, you're the one who's going to care most about your career. So might as well work all angles. You know.
Oh my god, hilarious. So you get an agent in New York. Obviously, we're here in Los Angeles, I'm in LA. Why come to LA if you two things on your belt? Agent. Feels like you're from New York, so why not stay in New York? Why come to LA?
Well, I mean, that's a deeper question there, Ashley.
Another episode, part 2.
No, it's coming to LA was tied into the fact that I mean, I didn't have great grades when I was younger, so I wasn't able to go to a great college, and I really wanted to go away to school, but I didn't have the grades and really couldn't afford it. So I went to a local college, and then I went to a 4-year after that. But that's to say that I wanted to come to LA because it was kind of like me getting that part of me satisfied, you know. And also it has to do with career, because I could have moved to like Milwaukee. I mean, who wants to go there? But like, there's no acting really happening out there. So LA was like the next, or Atlanta, which I don't know. But so LA was the way to go. But after I worked with that agent and got a few co-stars with him, I met my now agent at Eris Talent, who is bi-coastal, by cold calling, which I don't know if people still do that. Crazy. But I was a kind of a crazy person, because I was putting out headshots and cover letters and all that to like at least 100 agencies, in which I heard nothing, and then I cold called this agency, and I did the Actors Access Talent Link.
Oh yeah.
I did the talent link, and she was the only person that got back to me in email. And when I emailed her back to be like, oh yeah, I would love to work together, she never responded. I emailed her again, like in the following week, she never responded. So then I cold called her, and she was like, who is this? Like, you know, like who is this? Like I'm Batman. Like, who are you? I'm Batman. So I said, hey, this is Alex. It's like, I'm working like a shit job in Manhattan. I'm just like some guy trying to do something. So I'm like, oh, this is Alex. I emailed you. You were interested, and I'm stupid. Like, I'll see you later. And she's like, oh no, yes, let's work together. So that's how the initial steps into going into LA, because she was bi-coastal, and I was like,
so you're like, here I go, wow, hustling. That's crazy, bro. You called. That takes such courage.
Oh, I was so nervous, man.
Oh my god.
And I was actually also working. I was on the clock. I went to get a coffee, and I was like, let me call her real quick. Because I was like, I'm sick of this job.
Right.
I don't want to make it.
Actor's journey.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. So now.
Yeah, man.
Oh my gosh. So now you're in LA. Do you know anyone here? If someone's like, hey, I'm moving from my home state to LA, what are some tips? What do I do when I get here? Like, what would you say?
Yeah. Well, I have distant family that lives here.
Okay.
I have a cousin. So I first tried to move to LA in 2020. And I moved and I stayed with that family who I barely even knew. I was sleeping on their couch, and I had actually booked something, but in New York. I booked a co-star in New York. So I flew to New York, and I kid you not, I did a fitting on Thursday, and on Monday, COVID hit.
That's why I went.
Full blown.
When he said 2020.
Full blown COVID, and I was back in New York for another year.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So.
Well.
And then I tried again in March 2021 to move back here, and now I'm still here.
Now he's here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll go back to the City on Fire. You see, there's a lot of ups and downs to this acting journey.
Yeah.
So City on Fire, was this also self-submission? Was this an agent? And what was the process like of? Was it in-person audition something?
City on Fire was an agency submission,
Okay.
and it was a self-tape. And this was when I lived downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And if people know downtown LA, I lived. If you've ever been to a Lakers game, which is at the Staples Arena, Crypto Arena, it's probably the noisiest area you could ever be in. And I lived across the street from there.
Yep.
So I was doing self-tapes in that little room with two roommates who actually would holler and come in at like 2 a.m.
Yeah, that's why I'd be like, you can come here and tape anytime.
I remember that.
When I just moved here, I was like, yeah, come here.
I was like miserable, like my eyes were like down. Just like,
I just want to do a tape.
Actually, please help me.
It's like, it's here, we're here. Oh my gosh, crazy. So then, what was the process? Okay, so you sent in the tape to, did you get callback, chemistry read? What was the timeline of that? Because I know some people are like, book it. I know people are like, oh, I booked a recurring guest star, just one tape and that's it. I don't know if you had like Zoom callbacks with anyone or chemistry readings.
No, it was very fast. Very, very fast. I know that other cast members had some chemistry reads, especially like the leads.
Yeah.
But I pretty much found out on a random day. I was with my cousin in her studio, and my agent just texted me, "You booked it."
But
and this was like weeks later. This was weeks, and I haven't heard from her.
Later, okay.
You know, and she just said, actually, she booked it, and I was like, "What?" I was having anxiety. I was like, "What are you talking about?" My cousin like talking to me like, "Yeah, we're gonna do blah 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 blah." And I was like, "What does that mean?" And I called her. She didn't respond. She didn't respond for like another hour.
Oh god.
And she's like, "Oh, the thing that is actually the code name was Brass Tactics, which is actually in the book is one of the LPs of the band that we're actually part of is their first LP is called Brass Tactics, and that's the code name of the show."
Clever.
So yeah, I found out at that moment a few weeks later that I had booked a show, which I had originally thought was only 2 episodes.
And then he was in that 3, 4, 5. All eight.
Yeah.
So crazy. It's crazy that happens so fast. When my other friend movie happened like months, years. So it's crazy. Sometimes TV's a little faster.
I think I was the last, at least the last or one of the last people to be cast.
Gotcha. Okay, so you sent it this up tape, and then you said 4 weeks, 8 weeks that you booked it.
I think it was because I had filmed it literally right before I went to New York to film Law & Order SVU. I had a co-star on there, and then like a week or 2 after, I found out, and then I found out I'm leaving the next week.
So, okay, you book it, you go on set. What did you learn from this experience? Because is this your longest guest star? 8 episodes, right? I think. So, yeah, plenty of ghost stars on there. Hello.
Yeah, at least 5.
What was... crazy, we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
What did you learn from being on set 8 episodes? Like, how long was that filming?
That was in totality. Let's see my math. About 4.5 months.
Wow. What did you learn from 4 months on set? Every episode.
There was a lot.
Tell us it all!
All of it? You want to tell you 4 months worth of information?
What am I going to learn as an actor? My first I want to book a series like you, Alex. What would I learn?
What I can tell you, because there's so much that was going on.
Storyline as well.
The storyline as well. But, I mean, I would like to share our advice, I guess, to people.
Yes, this is...
The biggest thing that I've learned in this experience is to do it first and ask questions later. Don't ask for permission. Now...
You mean your acting takes?
Yes. Okay. This is in terms of performances. You know, everything else is consent. You know what I mean? But in terms of performance, don't ask for permission. Just do it and allow someone to correct you. Because, of course, being a minority in the show and in real life in the show, I felt like I had to be on eggshells a little bit. Yeah. Because, I mean, you're dealing with, like, people who've been in, like, Marvel movies. People who've done, like, multi-million-dollar shows. So I'm coming in as not a new face, but new to the world of, like, you're part of this core lifeblood of this show. So I wanted to at first just be very, like, professional, be very like, yes, I'll do that. Yes, we'll go here. I'll say it this way. But as I saw how people were being kind of treated over time and the differences in who gets treated in what way, and
there's politics to all jobs.
Yeah, and so how I saw the politics of it, and I felt like I wasn't getting the fullest experience out of it and living my fullest potential. Right. I just started to say, fuck it. I'm going to just go for these things. And when I started saying fuck it and going for these things, people would be like, oh, I like what you did there. Yeah. I like what you did. And then I felt a lot more confident. And that was because it was so long that I felt like in little pockets, I could be like, I'm going to do this way. It's not in the script, but I'm going to just do it. Sometimes people don't notice. Right. But then other times people are like, yeah, I like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they don't even know if it's scripted or not. They just say, I made that up. I was like, I was improv.
Yeah, no, one coach said that same thing too when you're on set. She's like, just make the first take yours. And then they can give you direction, because you never want to, like, do it the way you think they want it, and then at the end of the day you're like, wow, I wasn't as creative or as fulfilled as I wanted to be in this character, because I was doing what I thought I should be versus what I was feeling. So I do like that. Make the first take your take. Okay? Alright.
And don't be afraid to kind of just explore, you know, and do not only the improv, but also things that seem kind of crazy in the moment that don't make sense, because it could lead to something that's like groundbreaking.
Right. What? So not only do you act, but you direct. You made your own film. Tell us about that.
Oh, you got it, Ashley. So, like I said, I went to school and studied to get my bachelor's in film production. So my first film that I directed, wrote, edited, all this stuff, that was a full production, was a film called Retribution. It was inspired by mob movies, Italian mobster movies. I love Goodfellas, Scarface, those movies. Even though Scarface isn't a mob movie, but more Goodfellas. But I just was inspired by Al Pacino. But that film, it got into a bunch of festivals, Orlando Film Festival, Hollywood Film Festival, and people seemed to like it. And that was years ago. So after I did that, it was such a arduous, long process, because I had to, like, not only editing it, but also coloring it, and then, like, being like, I don't like this, let me find a colorist. Right. And getting a score and finding the right music licensing for it, and then finding the right festivals for it, and then working in order to pay the festival fees in order to submit it. Right. It's a lot. And dealing with, I had like 2 jobs at the time. It was just so many things I was trying to do, and I also had like my own my first started a production company where I was doing people's headshots and little things like that. I was trying to just in a podcast.
We're trying to hustle out here. We're trying not to have the day job, and sometimes it can become overwhelming. So
I produced a podcast also, and it was crazy. But recently, while the pandemic was happening, I shot a film originally it was called Latinx Rebels, which is now called Rebellious 8, which is a family, a kind of put together family. They're not a real family. Some of them are, but it's a put together family of Latinos who all have superpowers, and they use the superpowers to operate a business, which is failing because of COVID. So there is an act in the movie to try to save it. It's kind of like a desperation act, and so that's what the movie is about. And it's been accepted into the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival, Philadelphia Indie Film Festival, a lot of love from Philly, Latino Film Market in New York, which is actually, I found out the curator of the festival is somebody I went to college with. So it's pretty crazy. Crazy. Yeah, so, and that film is actually really a set piece to show people and tell people that I'm not only an actor, you know, how you're creating this great company and interviewing people. I'm creating my own material in order to showcase people and be like, oh, another actor, whatever. Oh, he's Spanish, whatever. It's like, oh, but you know what I mean? Because people will just be like, another one, another one, another one.
Right.
I even told my PR, I was like, I want to make sure that people understand that I am multi-hyphenate and I'm doing more than just acting. I'm trying to break the mold. I'm trying to build a space in order for Latinos. I'm trying to tell stories that are taking risks and, you know, try to be more.
You are. You're not trying. You're
thank
doing.
You.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, for Latino actors watching this, if they're like, you're inspiring me, how do I? Since making that sounds crazy, it is crazy, and making anything is crazy.
Yeah.
How do they, if they're like, I want to make something, but I know nothing. How do I start? Is it just a regular iPhone, finding friends? Like, what would you recommend? Like, hey, I'm Latino, I want to also, you know, have a positive impact for people of color, but I have no idea where to start. What are some tips? Well,
I would like to start that question by saying a tidbit in which I went to a panel that was a retrospective of Diego Luna's career, and one of the people in the audience asked kind of a similar question, and he answered it beautifully. He said, because the person was angry. He's like, I'm angry because I don't see us enough on screen, but we take up like 40% of like global ticket sales and things like that, the statistics.
Right.
And he basically said that all that anger that you're feeling, you need to take it and you need to make something with it. Like your favorite artist, they go into relationships, they break up with someone, and they album of the year. Yo, J. Cole comes out with like a big fro. It's like, it's gonna be fire, bro.
Right.
He hasn't got a haircut in 3 months.
Yeah, he's trying to grow out those dreads so badly.
Oh, so bad. Yeah. So, I mean, art after wars, the paintings that come out are just so deep. So, it's the depth of it and your emotions. You really, even though at the time it feels like a bad thing, you use it in order to create art that can be memorable for years and generations to come. So that was what he said. Take that anger, that emotion, and do something with it. Create something with it.
Right.
And I think that people right now, especially actors, we're not in a time where you can just be like a Humphrey Bogart or a Marlon Brando and just be an actor and kind of sit on your laurels and be like, I'm the man.
Right.
Everybody has access to cameras, to phones, to gimbals, to everything. So everybody's making stuff, social media, everything like that. And your first project, if you do a film or if you write something, it's going to be bad. I'm just being honest, because
you gotta learn.
Yeah, when you first start something, it's going to be terrible. It's going to be like garbage. I'm so serious, and you might be a prophet or like this guy who's just like, I don't know,
it's
like,
beautiful.
Yeah, it's just everything you come up with is just gold.
Right.
But that's such a small percent. Majority of people, the first thing you come out with is going to be horrible, and that's okay.
So, what does it mean to you to be a Latin actor? Does that hold any meaning? Do you feel, I don't want to say a certain responsibility? What does it mean to you?
I think it definitely bears responsibility, and going back to producing my own stuff was why I made Rebellious, and Rebellious is all Latino cast, was because I didn't see enough of us in a positive light. Like a majority of the roles I get auditioned for, and even in Law and Order, was like the criminal, the guy who's a piece of shit, or like the immigrant, or the guy who speaks Spanish.
Right.
And I mean, as you see now in Hollywood with like Pedro Pascal, Oscar Isaac, Anthony Ramos, like they're leading actors who happen to be of Latin descent. They're not Spanish actors. You know what I mean? So I think it bears not a ton of weight because there have been a lot of people before me to do that, but I want to do my part and not just complain because
it doesn't contribute.
The one thing, well, not the one thing, there's a lot of things that I hate in the world, but people who complain and don't do anything about it are like the bane of my existence because there's always something you can do about it. Unless it's like a nosy neighbor, then they pay the same rent you do, so you're gonna have to deal with it in some way. But I think I had to do my part and create my own content because me and my friend Max, we have Ascending Films, which is our indie production company, in which we've released 3 films already on YouTube. You could check it out on Ascending Films.
Send the links in the description.
And Rebellious was the latest one, and our previous ones were very action focused. And I wanted to do something story driven and also something with a message and something to bring representation to people that the best that I can do. So in terms of being an actor, in terms of being a Latino creative and everything like that, I think it's important because it's something that I'm complaining about. So I want to be the person doing something about it in whatever way I can, whatever small, tiny speck of an aspect of the universe.
That's how you make change. It's one small change at a time.
It starts with a star. Yeah. And that was good.
No, but it's true. I agree. No, it's true. That simple quote that I love is just be the change you wish to see in the world. It's that simple. I was also angry, Black Lives Lost, of just even all people of color not just having a fair chance at anything. I can't even just pertain it to acting. So one thing I was mad about, I was like, dang, I wish there was a genuine community of ethnic creators, because I love watching interviews and I find a lot of inspiration from that, but most interviews are of white actors because they dominate the industry. So I'm just like, I'm gonna start being upset about not being able to find like Black actresses or Asian, Latino, indigenous. I'm just gonna talk to them. Yeah. And hopefully it gets to you guys.
Yeah. 100%. And I am actually in City on Fire, the only Latino actor on that show.
What?
So.
What?
Shout out to Puerto Rico.
Who are the first 3 people, and if it's less, it's fine, but the first 3 people that come to mind when I say movie directors?
Well, I can tell you the first person that comes to mind is Jordan Peele. And the reason, and the only person I'll say, forget the other 2, is because not only is he breaking the mold in a space in which he has no experience in, which is horror and suspense, he's also of African descent, and he casts mostly African actors, which is why, going back, in Rebellious, my short film, I cast an all Latino cast because I see it and I'm like, why don't we as a collective cast each other and stuff? Why don't we bring each other up? I feel like it's a lot of kind of between like, you're Mexican, you're Dominican, colorism, like there's always a divisive element to it. Whereas I see his work and it's like, not only is it phenomenal, is it beautiful, but he's also uplifting people and people of that are really fucking talented. Right. So I really look up to his stuff and everything that he comes out with. That I'm just like, I'm watching it.
Yeah, I'm supporting it. I'll add. So you had one, I have 2. So Ryan Coogler and Gina Prince Bythewood. We'll just add those 2 in there to make it the 3. I love them. Hey, Ryan. Hey, Gina. Okay.
Hey, Jordan.
You kind of already said some names, but maybe you have different ones. First 3 Latin actors that come to mind.
Well, yes. Right now, in the space that we're in, is Oscar Isaac, Diego Luna, Pedro Pascal, and Anthony Ramos, Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yes, Lin.
I mean, those are the top 5 that come into mind because that is in the modern space that it's happening. Well, but I mean, there's tons of other Latino actors that have, growing up, like Rita Moreno, Jennifer Lopez, Mark Anthony, and
George Lopez.
George Lopez. My God, there's really so many. But I think right now, it's elevating at such a pace and a velocity that you can't not notice it. Because back then, it was, you got a little like, when you feed a fish, You get a little sprinkle.
Little nibble.
It was just like all these shows, all these movies, and then a little sprinkle of Latino, and then you just kind of skim over it.
Right.
But now I think I'm seeing a space in which there are a lot more happening, and that has to do with politics. And I mean, Bad Bunny is a big part of it because he's biggest. I don't know about it anymore, but he was the biggest artist on the planet, and he's very forward with the politics of Puerto Rico and the United States and the rights of the people and becoming independent versus being a state. And it's brought a lot of eyes, not only to
publicity,
the culture, but the island and Latinos in general, and people wanting to see more, you know, especially after the Black Lives Matter movement, when we all supported black actors, black artists, and everything, like businesses. I think that it's all kind of elevating for everyone as well.
All the other minorities.
Yeah.
So, It Takes a Universe to Raise a Star is essentially like my modern twist on It Takes a Village to Raise a Child. So the people in your journey who are stars that have helped you, who was someone that helped you in the beginning when you were just starting out, and who was someone who helped you recently?
Well, I mean, my biggest supporters are always going to be my parents.
Oh.
When I was younger, and as I said before, I've had many jobs. My first career that I was going to do was be a cop. It's because my dad wanted me to do that because it was safe. It was something I was very...
Safe.
Yeah, it's very...
Financially not.
Yeah, oh my God. That was the most dangerous job you could have besides being a Navy SEAL. But it's financially safe, but also I was very lost when I was younger. I was getting into a lot of trouble. I had no real direction what I was doing.
Because you didn't have your passion yet.
I didn't have my passion. I almost got kicked out of community college because I was doing so bad. Yeah, my parents, even when I decided to, there was literally a moment where I was accepted to be into the academy, and I told my dad, no, I want to do film stuff, because it's when I was studying film. And and if you know, like, Latino families, like they're just like, what? Especially if like your grandparents came from like another island or something, and they're just like, are you sure about that?
Yeah.
You know, and it was a long conversation, and it was a heated conversation, but eventually they supported me, and they believed in me ever since then. So I mean, they've always stuck by me through the ups and the downs and the doubts and the failures. So, I mean, I hope to be a parent like that. Yeah.
His parents are stars. So sweet. You guys.
And recently, I would say that my cousin Amy has been a very big structure of my success, because, like I said, when I was coming here doing auditions, I was in a bad place. Toxic relationships, and you know, basically I was homeless for a while. Having
all the LA experiences.
All the LA experiences, yeah. Delivering food, and I was really kind of not believing in the process. I wasn't believing in myself, and she was very supportive with her words. She like tried to help me with talking to people and going to network and things like that. So she was even like my pseudo manager for a little while, trying to advise me on things. So I think without her as well being here, I would have been very lost.
That's what this is all about. People helping other people. So thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, everyone. It's gonna pay off.
Yes, it is paying off.
Hey,
catch him today on City on Fire. Woo! If you learned anything, felt inspired by this interview, you definitely want to check out this one.